Freeze. You're under arrest for illegal flower planting. That's what 3 strangers in fake tactical gear shouted at my wife right there in our own front yard. Tracy was on her knees, her hands trembling in the dirt where she'd just planted a few yellow marigolds, and I just stood there frozen, watching what looked like a parody of justice turn into a real nightmare. The neighbors were filming cheering. They thought it was some kind of heroic HOA sting. What they didn't know was that they'd just picked a fight with the wrong man, one who commands U.S. Marshals. It started 2 hours earlier. We'd driven up to our cabin outside Denver for a quiet weekend. No phones, no emails, just mountain air and coffee on the porch. Tracy, my wife, she's a 3rd-grade teacher, gentle but fierce in her own way. She'd bought a flat of bright yellow marigolds, said the front bed looked too sad. That was her word. I remember laughing, thinking, sure, why not? Let's make it happy. I didn't know those flowers were about to cause the most insane confrontation of my life. Around 8, she went outside in her old college sweatshirt, humming while she dug. I was at the kitchen window, mug in hand, thinking, this is perfect. Then I saw her, the woman across the street. White polo khakis, gray hair pulled tight in a bun. She was holding binoculars, watching my wife like we were suspects in some suburban sting operation. Every few minutes, she'd write something down on her clipboard. Tracy waved. The woman just turned away. Creepy as hell. Honey, Tracy called. That lady keeps staring. Ignore her, I said. Some people just need a hobby. That was my first mistake. By 10 that morning, the binoculars lady Laura Thompson was marching across the street with 2 strangers in tow. One wore a fake security uniform, the other an older woman with the air of a retired teacher trying to look official. Laura carried a camera, a measuring tape, and enough paperwork to look dangerous to someone who didn't know better. She looked at me like I was about to confess to something terrible. "Excuse me," she said, sweet and sharp at the same time. "I need to document these flowers for the violation report." Tracy blinked. Violation for what? Click, click, click. The sound of that camera made my skin crawl. Laura circled the flower bed like it was a crime scene. "Non-native species planted without architectural review consent," she muttered into her phone. Then she straightened up and announced Article 47B prohibits unapproved landscaping. "You have 2 hours to remove these plantings or enforcement action will begin." I tried to stay calm. "Ma'am, there's no HOA here. This is unincorporated county land." Laura's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Ignorance of community standards is not a valid defense." She turned to the woman beside her. "Margaret, document the subject's resistance." Tracy shot me a look, half disbelief, half anger. "Josh, is this a joke?" "I wish it were," I said. Then Laura said something that chilled me more than all her fake rules combined. She leaned toward Tracy, voice soft. "You don't have to protect him anymore, honey. Help is coming." I laughed at the absurdity of it. She didn't. 40 minutes later, a real sheriff's cruiser rolled up, blue lights flashing gravel, crunching under its tires. My stomach dropped. Laura had somehow convinced actual law enforcement that she was a victim. The deputy, Jim Patterson, stepped out, polite but wary, holding a tablet. "Sir, I need to ask you about allegations of intimidation and abuse of authority." He showed me a video Ring doorbell footage edited to make me look like I was shouting at Laura. My voice lowered, distorted, hers trembling and afraid. It was a bad deepfake job, but convincing enough if you didn't know me. And now hundreds of people were watching a live stream Laura had started. The title read, "Federal Agent Bullies Elderly Woman Over Flowers." The comments were a flood of outrage. "Fire him. Arrest that thug. Poor lady just enforcing community rules." I tried to explain. "I'm a federal law enforcement officer. This is all fabricated. These people impersonated police." But Laura turned her phone toward the camera and said, "See? He's using his badge to silence me." And that's when I cracked. For the first time in my career, I felt powerless. No backup, no badge that mattered, just a crowd that had already decided I was guilty. I started to doubt myself. Had I escalated this? Maybe I should have ignored her. Maybe if I'd just let her play pretend, Tracy wouldn't be standing there with handcuffs around her wrists crying while strangers called her a victim of domestic abuse. Then I heard it, the sound of the cuffs clicking shut. Something snapped inside me. The agent in me, the one who's handled fugitives and federal warrants for almost 2 decades, took over. "Stop," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. "United States Marshal Service. Everyone freeze where you are." Silence. Even the wind seemed to stop. Rob, the fake security guy, dropped his phone. Margaret let go of Tracy like she'd touched a live wire. Laura's eyes widened. The live stream kept rolling every second of it. I held up my badge. "Supervisory Deputy Josh Mitchell, U.S. Marshal Service. You are committing federal kidnapping and impersonation of law enforcement. Release her. Now." Rob fumbled with the cuffs, hands trembling. The deputy's hand went to his weapon until he saw the badge was real, and just like that, the power flipped. I started recording with my own phone, narrating everything. Field documentation of ongoing federal offenses. October 14th, 11:35 a.m. Laura's face twitched. "This is federal overreach," she yelled at her camera still live. "You're all seeing it. A corrupt agent silencing citizens." But the crowd wasn't buying it anymore, not after seeing her officers panic like kids caught cheating on an exam. Tracy was shaking but free, rubbing her wrists. I kept my voice low, steady. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Then we're done here." What I didn't realize was that Laura's live stream, her masterpiece, had just gone viral. Within hours, the internet was flooded with half-truths and outrage. CNN called my office. Did a federal marshal arrest a woman for planting flowers? My supervisor's voice was pure damage control. "Mitchell, tell me this isn't what it looks like." By the time we got back inside, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Hashtags like Flowergate and #federal bullying were trending. I watched as strangers dissected my life in the comments section. "Power-tripping cop." "Fire him." "Poor grandma just enforcing HOA rules." It didn't matter that the badges were fake, that the HOA didn't exist. The first story always wins. I almost gave up right there. Just shut the world out, let the system crush me. But then our neighbor Bob knocked on the door. "You might want to see this," he said, holding his phone. He'd recorded everything from across the street, Laura handing Rob fake security patches, whispering directions before the deputy arrived. He'd even dug up county records. No HOA, no committee, no legal authority. Just Laura's personal empire of control. Turns out she'd been running a scam for months, charging neighbors fines for mailbox colors and parking violations. She'd made thousands, and she picked me, the federal guy, as her final project. The sheriff reopened the investigation. Laura was arrested for fraud impersonation and unlawful detention. Her live stream empire collapsed under its own lies. But she wasn't done yet. She announced a federal overreach rally on her front lawn, banners, cameras, microphones, the whole circus. I didn't go, but the whole neighborhood did. At noon, Sharp Deputy Patterson arrived, not to arrest me, but to serve Laura with charges. And because irony has perfect timing, it happened live on her own stream. "Mrs. Thompson," he said into the mic, "you are under investigation for fraud, impersonation of a peace officer, and unlawful detention. There is no registered HOA in this area." The crowd murmured. Laura, desperate, tried to spin it. "See, they're silencing me again," she shouted. Then she made her fatal mistake. She played her evidence video. The projector flickered, and right there on the screen, the file name read HOA Roleplay V3 Final .mp4. Silence. Then someone laughed. Another yelled, "You faked all of this!" The crowd turned. Even her sidekick, Margaret, stood up, voice shaking. "She told me it was real. I didn't know." Rob dumped a box of fake badges onto the stage and walked away. Laura kept streaming to a dwindling audience, shouting about conspiracies, while neighbors showed receipts she'd collected, texts where she called me target acquired. It was over. Her lies had burned out under the spotlight. She lit herself. 2 weeks later in court, I finally learned why she did it. Laura had lost her daughter Emma 2 years ago, killed by a man who'd broken a traffic rule. Ever since, Laura had convinced herself that enforcing rules would keep the world safe. She built an empire of order around her grief and destroyed lives in the process. The judge sentenced her to a year in jail, probation, restitution. But what hit me hardest wasn't the punishment, it was what came after. The money she owed the victims went to build a memorial garden for Emma. Yellow marigolds bloomed there every spring, the same kind that started it all. I still pass that garden sometimes. The wind chimes hanging there are made from the fake badges she used. When the wind moves through them, they sound like small hollow apologies, soft reminders that control can destroy just as much as chaos. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about learning when to stop controlling and start healing.